Good morning, members. I call Committee of the Whole on Bill 31, Energy Statutes Amendment Act 2025 to order. We are on Clause 1. Shall Clause 1 pass?
Aye.
Okay. Recognizing the member for Salmon Arms, Shuswap.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good morning. Good morning to the Minister. My question to the Minister has to do with governance and ratepayer impact. Has the Ministry assessed the long-term implication of widespread joint ownership of the transmission assets on BC Hydro's operational control, cost recovery, revenue structure, and the overall system planning responsibilities when it comes to the joint ownership?
Recognizing the Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to introduce to members of the committee the team around me. To my left is Peter Picorni, the Deputy Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions. Directly behind me is Chris Gilmore, the ADM for Electricity and Utility Regulation. Over my right shoulder is Zach Marilovich, the Director of Policy. And to my left is Suzanne Manahan, who's the Executive Project Lead for NCTL. That's who's with us this morning, and I appreciate their work. I'm going to turn this over. And with respect to this question, which we've canvassed yesterday and on the Thursday previous, to say that, as the member knows, the joint venture partners will own shares, equal shares, BC Hydro and First Nations, in the project, and that BC Hydro will be solely responsible for operating the project, and so that continues to be the case, and would be the case in a system that we have, which is a system around the province that is essential in ensuring that people get access to the electricity they need. So that's the structure. The structure is that on the operation side of the transmission line, BC Hydro would operate the line as it does all the other many lines in BC.
Recognizing the member for Salmon Arms, Shuswap.
Thank you to the Minister, and thank you, Honor. Moving on to procurement and the infrastructure itself. Honourable Chair, through you to the Minister, Bill 31 creates a new framework for ownership, asset transfers, and partnership agreements for the North Coast transmission line. What it does not clearly set out is how this project will meet the province's obligation to support Canadian manufacturing, protect ratepayers from long-term operating losses, and ensure the use of the most efficient transmission technologies available. My question is, can the Minister confirm whether the agreement that Cabinet may delegate under Bill 31 will contain explicit requirements for Buy Canadian procurement in the use of high-efficiency, low-cost transmission components, such as advanced conductor technologies and modern HVDC systems, or next-generation insulated cables, so that the North Coast transmission line delivers the maximum efficiency for the taxpayer?
Recognizing the Minister.
Well, the member will know that BC Hydro is a leader in buying Canadian and buying British Columbian, and that the direction by the Premier in the month of March to all Crown corporations further reinforced this, and this is a mandate in general for BC Hydro. With respect to the building of the transmission line, of course, it's not the subject of this legislation. This allows for a joint venture partnership in the ownership of the North Coast transmission line. That's the purpose of this section. But he can be assured that BC Hydro, which has generations of experience in building transmission lines, will build the best possible project. The need here is to serve the economic and social interests of the northwest of the province, just as other transmission lines that BC Hydro have built have done the same for Metro Vancouver and other areas. And so BC Hydro will continue, as it builds projects, to use the highest standards, as it consistently has, because this is an important, obviously, transmission line, but all of our transmission lines are important. Just recently, and the member will note this in the Site C review, BC Hydro built a significant transmission network around that new dam. They did it ahead of time and did it with great efficiency, and I would expect the same thing on the North Coast transmission line. But again, would be happy at any time, and the member knows this because he's visited BC Hydro and he's had access to briefings that I don't recall as an opposition critic, but in previous times. But it's because we're open on these processes, and I'd always be open to the member having access to BC Hydro and getting briefed on important issues, even those that are not the subject of this legislation.
Recognizing the member.
Thank you to the minister. And please bear with me, too. I'm actually quite hoarse today, too. Anyways, my question to the minister, more specifically, does the government intend to include Canadian procurement requirements for steel, for the towers, the conductors, the insulators, the cable systems, and the converter infrastructure with each phase of the North Coast transmission line?
Recognizing the minister.
All Crown corporations are under an obligation to procure Canadian wherever possible. The member will understand that in some circumstances that may not be possible, and that procurement would take place outside. But BC Hydro has an outstanding record, and I'd be happy to brief the member or have the member briefed on that record in terms of procurement of Canadian content in all its projects. It's a remarkable thing. In fact, at Site C, where there's a significant amount of steel used, that steel was Canadian at Site C, and that's because BC Hydro has always taken these seriously, but even more seriously in the wake of the attacks from the American administration on Canadian sovereignty and on British Columbia workers. So happy to brief them on that. Of course, it's not a subject of the current legislation or clause involved.
Recognizing the member for Salmon Arm Shuswap.
Thank you to the minister, and thank you, Chair. To the minister, through the chair, will the minister require BC Hydro or any limited partnership created under this act to evaluate the use of high-efficiency transmission technology? For instance, low-loss aluminum conductor composites or other high-performance HVDC systems, or other technologies that are used currently internationally to reduce power line losses and lifetime operating costs. And right now in Europe, there's new transmission lines wiring that has less leakage and has greater lifespan, as well as more efficiency. So you get more for your bang for your buck. Is that what's going to be implemented in this transmission line?
Recognizing the Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions.
Well, just to say that the member will know, and the specifics of the construction of the transmission line, of course, are not the subject of this legislation, but he'll know that BC Hydro, there are North American standards for transmission line, which BC Hydro will meet and, as it consistently does, exceed.
We're on Clause 1. Shall Clause 1, recognizing the member for Salmon Arm Shuswap.
I'm not quite as quick. Thank you, Your Honour. To the minister, will the minister commit to publishing an engineering and cost-benefit analysis comparing standard transmission components with higher efficiency alternatives, so that this legislature can determine whether the lowest capital bid is truly the lowest long-term cost for the hydro ratepayers?
Recognizing the minister.
It might be possible that BC Hydro has built a network of transmission lines across this province, has done an outstanding job over time, that delivers some of the, perhaps the best service in North America, at some of the lowest rates in North America, has expertise in the construction of transmission lines. They meet or exceed North American standards. And if the member wishes a briefing in future on the use and the materials used in transmission lines, I suggest that that may not be a subject for a legislative debate, but we'd be happy to provide it.
Recognizing the member.
Thank you, Your Honour. And to the minister, through the chair, just to clarify, so will BC Hydro be publishing what components are going to be in the transmission, like what lines they're going to be using, or what capacitors they're going to be using, or other components, so that the ratepayers could actually determine the efficiency comparison between old technology and new technology.
Recognizing the minister.
Well, the member will know that in procurement processes, BC Hydro seeks the best technology. And so the question, of course, which has nothing to do with the section in front of us, which is just fact, but we've been broadly trying to respond to questions. But the member wants more information on this procurement process. He can have it. All I can say is the BC Hydro has substantial expertise, continuing expertise, continually evolving expertise in this area. And I've already suggested to him that should he wish information from BC Hydro, unlike previous governments, we're open and we try and be as open as possible with opposition MLAs because of my respect for the role of opposition MLAs and all MLAs in this House.
Recognizing the member.
I thank the minister for the opportunity to get additional information. Finally, under the despite any other enactment in the bill, override clause, can the cabinet designate an agreement that omits Buy Canadian requirements or efficiency standards? And if so, how does the minister justify leaving that discretion unbounded, even given the lifetime financial impact on the taxpayers?
Well, Buy Canadian provisions are not the subject of the legislation. They're the subject of direction. BC Hydro leads Canada in its policies for Buy Canadian. And I'd be happy to have that debate in a time that is relevant. But I would say that that is the case. There would be no need in a section that is a discussion of partnerships with First Nations and allows for those partnerships with First Nations to be dealing with issues around material. We have policies in place to direct Buy Canadian, and those policies are enforced. And BC Hydro, in its procurement practice and others, is justifiably proud of its record in that regard.
Recognizing the member for Salmon Arm Shuswap.
Thank you, Donner. And to the minister, this is coming from a colleague here. Is there going to be a transmission tax now or in the future on going through that line?
Recognizing the minister.
No.
We're on clause one. The member for Salmon Arm Shuswap.
At this time, I'd like to present an amendment.
Should I get him to read the amendment and then we'll determine if it's out of order after?
Yeah, we could probably just take a recess, make copies for everyone.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess and come back. Members, I call Committee of the Whole on Bill 31 back to order. Copies are being distributed as we speak, and I would like to recognize the member for Salmon Arm Shuswap to make some comments about the proposed amendment before a ruling's made. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you can see before you, the amendment is basically about procurement, making sure that we support our local economy and our Canadian economy. That we should always be doing procurement from a Canadian first aspect, and I think in these difficult times, and in light of everything else that's happened in most recent times, it's even more important that we support Canadian. This transmission is a big investment. It's a very big investment for this province. It's obviously a big investment for the country now that it's been recognized. So I think it is of the utmost importance that we show that we are truly a Canadian project and that we're going to do everything we can to support Canadian business and Canadian industry in every way when it comes to this project. And like I said, and the second component of this is actually we must make sure that we actually have a strong local economy. So any kind of procurement we can do close to home or manufacturing that we can do within the province or buy within the province, I think we should strongly support. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you for your comments, member. Having reviewed the amendment, I've determined that the amendment is beyond the scope of the bill and deemed out of order. That being said, shall Clause 1 pass?
Aye.
So ordered. There is no division. Is there a division? Okay, on which one?
On clause 1.
On Clause 1, yes, okay. Well, there has been a division called, my apologies, and
Just a order, I think, because of the way the House is organized, it's likely the division would take us past the...
a division's been called, so...
Okay, so
yeah,
we're-
so no
I was
point of order.
just suggesting it be deferred to a
The division's been called.
The division's been called, so...
Okay, no problem.
division has, just putting the question to all members, and just a reminder that only members of Section A or their duly appointed substitutes are authorized to vote. The question is on the amendment to Clause 1. Those, two, sorry, two. What?
Clause 1. It's on Clause 1.
That's what I said, didn't I? Oh, is it? Oh. Question is on Clause 1. All those in favor, please rise. Okay, please be seated. Those voting nay, please rise or indicate otherwise. Thank you, members. You may be seated. Clerk?
Those voting aye, Dix, Young, Sandu, Rutledge, Begg, Valeriot, 6. Those voting nay, Cooner, Mock, Williams, 3.
Clause 1 passes. So, on Clause 2 and recognizing the Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I move that the committee rise and report progress and ask leave to sit again.
Members have heard the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The committee stands adjourned.